Good evening. I'd like to call the City of Menasha Common Council meeting to order. Please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Could we have roll call, please?
Alderman Kraut-Kramer?
Here.
Alderman Langdon?
Here.
Alderman Keehan?
Here.
Alderman Zielinski? Here. Alderman Rollins-Jump?
Here.
Alderman Benner? Alderman Nichols?
Here.
Alderman Taylor.
The first item on the agenda this evening is public comments on any matter of concern to the city. If anyone wishes to make comments this evening, you're welcome to step up to the microphone and please state your name and address so that we could get that for the record.
Chris Klein, 730 Kais. I'm here tonight to talk about the ordinance amending Title 2, Chapter 2 of the Code of Ordinances, the hold procedure. This item was amended by the mayor, the city attorney, brought forward by Alderman Better, and presided over by Alderman Nichols. I ask you all not to support this resolution. You're being manipulated by this group. The rights of the voice of the minority will be further eroded if you adopt this ordinance. This procedure has been in place for many years, and it's there to hold items on the agenda for further review if it's required. You're only hurting yourselves as elected officials by voting for this ordinance. You're responsible for the taxpayers, first and foremost. Your responsibility is not to the mayor and not to the city attorney. Alderman Taylor tried to use this procedure to hold an agenda item so he could do further review. Alderman Taylor is a duly elected official, representing the people of District 2. Alderman Taylor is their voice at City Hall. He has the right to speak on any topic he wishes and to add any item to any agenda. Alderman Taylor tried to discuss this during the administration committee meeting, and Alderman Nichols was chairing that committee. Alderman Nichols continuously bullied Alderman Taylor by turning off his microphone. Alderman Taylor is a duly elected official who represents the people of District 2. He is their voice. Alderman Nichols continuously turned off Alderman Taylor's microphone so their voice could not be heard. Alderman Nichols, do you think your voice is more important than his? I find this behavior of Alderman Nichols to be childish, arrogant, and disrespectful to the people of District 2. I demand an apology from Alderman Nichols to the people of District 2 and to Alderman Taylor. Thank you for your time.
Is there anyone else who wishes to be heard this evening? I was going to say, there has to be at least more than one.
I was hoping I didn't have to be up right away. Sandra DeVille Taylor, 545 Broad Street. I could speak an hour regarding the developer agreement tonight, but I'm not going to. I hope you all have lots of questions, because there are a lot of questions to be asked. Unfortunately, you're up against a time constraint. They want to begin construction June 1st. There are so many variables that have to be met in order to make this TIF and this project go forward. The only way construction can start June 1st is if this agreement tonight is made contingent upon item after item after item after item. There are public hearings that have to be held, both for transferring public property, for the development plan, and the TIF boundaries. It has to go before the Plan Commission, it has to come back to the council, and you have a joint review board. That's not all going to happen in 2 weeks. So please think carefully. This is a project that's going to benefit the city of Menasha for the long term. Let's just do it right. The council's back is against the wall, and I realize, it's not fair to you. I actually am very disappointed in the administration and community development. Now, the public really was left in the dark on this project. There are a few things out on the Facebook pages like sunshine and lollipops, but the facts and the figures were not presented. It wasn't really until the Post Crescent and Duke actually started writing articles that the public became aware of the whole picture of what this encompassed. So I wanted to bring that up. I also wanted to mention the PUD zoning that's on the agenda tonight. I know it's going to go through. I just wanted to reiterate my displeasure in how this zoning language was totally modified from what the purposes and intent of PUD zoning is for. It's for a campus environment, residential properties, a large project with multiple facets to it. This is one building. The only conclusion I can come up with is that PUD eliminates setbacks, it creates minimal landscaping, and it allows the 8 stories, which I think could have easily been done with a variance. And I'm just thinking that we kind of made the zoning fit the project instead of the other way around. It also eliminated the standard materials by which new construction is supposed to comply: natural stone and brick. And we have very minor on this new building. It's glass, which I think is really cool, but that too could have been worked out. I also have questions regarding the boundary. The way I read the map, and I could be wrong, is that this TIF 13 would overlap existing TIF 4 and TIF 7. And if so, how do those TIFs, how are they impacted by this project? It appears that it takes over prior TIF 1 that was recently closed. So one TIF that we finally closed is kind of getting reused again for the same area. I also have a question regarding the borrowing of money from TIF 5. From what I can see, now I did a little Google search this morning, so I'm not sure if this is accurate. September of 2008, $270,000 was borrowed from TIF 5 to TIF 8, which is the Headwaters project. September of 2008, $420,000 was borrowed from TIF 5 to TIF 7, the Marina Place condos and apartments. August 2011, $250,000 was borrowed from TIF 5 to TIF 10, the 3rd Street corridor where the market and the theater is. Now we're asking to borrow $750,000 from TIF 5 for TIF 13. Cumulative, that's $1,690,000 that's been taken out of TIF 5. That's big dollars. When is TIF 5 supposed to be closed, and is there going to be any increment left to share with all these overlapping tax entities if we keep taking money out of it? Also related to the boundaries, with the parking ramp slated to hold 300 cars, the exit is going to be onto Broad Street. They either have to go east or west. I would actually like to see the boundary increase to include the intersection of Broad and Racine. We are either going to need traffic lights or a roundabout or something installed in there to flow this traffic. These are 300 cars that are going to be exiting every night. Right now they'd be hitting a stop sign with a blind spot. This can all get worked into the future Racine Street Bridge reconstruction, and let's look at the big picture. Let's look at this Racine Street corridor. Let's make Broad Street a full interchange, and maybe actually someday I can have, where I live on a two-way street again and have that a full two-way access. So I think that should be considered. We have a lot of cars coming and going. Along with that is the bridge itself. We can, unlike popular thought, we can regulate the hours that the bridge opens and shuts. Oshkosh does it, De Pere does it. We can have it regulated during the lunch hour, during high traffic volume, that the bridge does not open in order to facilitate all that traffic. I've brought this up in years past. I think now is an opportune time to relook at that issue. And then finally, I don't know, I'm probably running out of time. bear with me. I also wanted to mention the hold issue. To me, this has been something that benefits the public. The public needs to weigh in on things. If they're not aware of something, if an alderman does not have the information they need, a hold is their tool to ask for that information. And as a point of clarification, another little Google search last night, February 16th, 2015, consent agenda, revising current park fee policies for nonprofit groups to coincide with current special event fee policy. Moved by second by Benner to hold. Item held. October 7th, 2013, R-1513, resolution to return to August settlement to Winnebago County of the city's portion of 2011 property taxes for 1304 Midway Road. Moved by Nichols to hold the item until the next meeting. No second, the motion dies. January 1st, 2012, R-1-12A, resolution to restructure prorated benefit levels for regular part-time employees. Moved by Benner, second by Langdon to hold. Item held. July 20th, 2009, consent agenda, rear yard drainage yard grant program. Moved by Benner, second by Hendricks to hold. Item held. February 18th, 2008, appointment, I won't mention the person's name. Moved by Merkus, second by Hendricks to hold. The item was held. December 3rd, 2007, a change order to the water treatment plant. Moved by Merkus, second by Taylor to hold. Item held. December 3rd, 2007, consulting agreement with McClone Insurance Group. Moved by Taylor, second by Merkus to hold. Item held. October 15th, 2007, change order wastewater treatment plant, a deduct. Moved by Merkus, second by Hendricks to hold. Item held. October 1st, 2007, ordinance O-23-07, ordinance relating to C3 Business and Office District. Moved by Taylor, second by Merkus to hold. Just a few more.
You're about 5 minutes over almost already.
I'll move for unanimous consent. She's staying on track, so I think she has the right to finish.
We don't need the history, but if you want to continue on the rest, is fine.
I'll just do one more. June 4th, 2007, O-9-07, amendment to the mayoral salary of Joe Laux. Moved by Taylor, second by Merkus to hold. Item held. What this shows is, at some point, even the current mayor, when he was an alderman, thought the hold motion was appropriate. He held items for more information. To take that away now, after decades of its use, is irresponsible. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Taylor. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak this evening? No one? Okay. Oh, John? Sure.
Good evening. That's right. Mr. Mayor, Council President Taylor, members of the Common Council. My name is John Hogarty. I'm here today to speak in favor of the development agreement for the office tower project downtown. This is a very exciting day for Menasha. I have been here in this chamber at least 7 occasions at public hearings. There's been public debate. There's been hours of negotiations, and tonight you have an opportunity to vote on this project and push it forward. If this project is going to happen at all, it will have to be approved tonight. Time is of the essence if we are going to be able to bring this together. I can't be more clear on that. This is a critical night if we want to do this. This has not been an easy process. Tough questions have been asked, concessions have been made, some very significant ones. I think when I was here last in front of this body 2 weeks ago, we agreed to take the risk on the TIF. It's a very significant concession on our part because we wanted to get this project done and to move forward. So tough questions have been asked, concessions made. We didn't always agree, but that's appropriate. That is appropriate in a project this big and this important. And we welcome that. This should be a transparent process, and we want to be transparent. The city staff, they haven't made it easy on me, and that's not their job. Director Kyle, Treasurer Stino, City Attorney, Captain have represented the city extremely well. They've been protecting the city at every chance. We haven't always agreed as we've talked through issues, but I will tell you that even when we didn't agree, we were generally able to find common ground. Usually I feel like because I conceded something, but we were able to find common ground. They might disagree, but because we were aligned in the idea that this agreement and this project has to be good for the city of Menasha. This developer group is here because they believe that. Because of that, I believe we've been able to meet common ground and come to an agreement that we can agree upon and present to you tonight. I've attempted to be very transparent, as I mentioned. I've been to 7 public meetings, answered every question that's been put to me. I've talked to the media that's been in attendance at every meeting I've attended. I've talked to members of the public who were at those meetings and on the street to explain to them what this is about and what our purpose is. I've talked to businesses, business owners, many of whom are here tonight. And I've attempted to reach out to every one of you because I didn't want to have any of you feel like you didn't have an opportunity to ask me any question that you had about this project. There are no hidden agendas here. We want this project to go forward because we believe it will help spur growth downtown. Now, I have been told that, important point I wanted to make very quickly is the process that we've been through. Started with the Landmarks Commission. That was kind of our first stop as we designed the building, brought it forward to say, is this going to work for the city of Menasha? We worked with that body and we came through with discussion from them with some changes to the building, some very significant, to a building that they approved unanimously. The Landmarks Commission unanimously approved the building design and said this would look good or be harmonious with downtown. That's their purpose. And I'm very proud of that. I think that's an important point we can't overlook, particularly from where we started. We've been through the Plan Commission on at least 3 occasions, 2 or 3 occasions, and at each point, eventually, that commission has unanimously pushed sections of this project forward to you for your vote, by unanimous vote. Elements of the zoning, elements of the design. Their job is not to, as you know, oversee the entire project or the development agreement. The pieces that they've had, they've pushed forward to you. And I've been in front of this body 3 times, I believe. 2 times as this composition, once as the administrative committee. And this body has unanimously voted to direct staff to work with me to try to come to an agreement that would make sense, indicating your belief that this project is good for downtown and should be pursued. So we're here tonight, and I've been told that it's not possible to get a unanimous vote from this body on this project, and I would be pleased to have us be able to go forward even with the slightest of margins, because I believe it's that important and it's that good for the city. But I'd ask you, as you consider your vote tonight, to think about the statement it would make if you could come together as a group and support this project. Think about the statement that would make to the citizens of the Menasha, the taxpayers, your constituents. Think about the statement that would make to the investors who are putting money in this project because they believe in downtown, with very little hope of return other than hoping to see downtown grow. Think about the statement that would make to the overall community, to the greater Fox cities, about what Menasha is about, where Menasha is going, and where their future is. What they're going to do with their downtown. They're not going to let it go away. This is an opportunity. I will be here tonight to answer any questions that you have as we get to this item on the agenda. And I would close by respectfully requesting your vote in favor of this, and thanking you for your time, not just tonight, but throughout this project. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hogarty. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak then? See? Okay. Seeing no one else, we'll move on to the report of department head, staff, and consultants. The first item on the agenda this evening is from the police chief. Chief Styka is here. And I think before we start this item, I'd like to just start out by saying that we've all been hit kind of hard the past couple weeks in this community. I don't think anyone's been hit harder than the police department with all the things that they've been through. And I'd like to just take an opportunity to thank everyone for all of the work that they've done over the past few weeks, all the things that they do day in and day out for us, and let them know how much they're appreciated for doing those things, and hopefully we'll continue to have a great force in the future. And with that,
thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it. In your council packets, you did have a recap of the Police Week recognition awards, which were given out this past week during Police Week. In the essence of time, as there's a lot of things on this agenda tonight, we certainly won't go through all those. In addition, you also have the annual report, which kind of breaks down what went on in 2014 with the department. But in the interest of time, both for the council, as you have some important decisions to make, as well as myself, if anything I've learned over the last 2 weeks, it's the importance of family. And my son will be running in a conference track meet today, probably the last time I'll see him run. So I'm going to make this really quick. No offense to anyone here. In any event, what we wanted to do tonight is, generally the police department has brought in our new officers so the community can meet them. And then we also want to go over the top awards that we have as well. So the first officer I want to bring up is Raymond Berna. Officer Berna started with our department just after the incident that took place, so I'm sure he may have been questioning getting into law enforcement itself. But he comes to us as being a veteran with infantry team leader experience in the U.S. Army. He graduated from Seymour High School and then attended UW-Platteville for approximately 2.5 years before he decided to get into the military. After being honorably discharged and then attended Recruit Academy at Fox Valley Technical College, he applied with the city of Menasha. Officer Berna is married and very excited to begin his career in law enforcement. He's been now with us about 3 weeks. Generally what happens is when an officer gets sworn in, they get their badge. We do have a little ceremony here up in the council chambers. Then after they get off their initial field training period, they get presented with a challenge coin. And then when they get off a probationary period, they get an American flag pin. So ceremoniously, I want to represent Officer Berna his badge. And I wish him the best of luck as his career here in Menasha.
Thank you.
The next officer I'd like to introduce to you is Officer John Abrahamson. Officer Abrahamson, he's a Menasha native. He's grown up with the dream of being a police officer here in Menasha. In fact, when it came to applying for officer positions, this is the only place that he applied, right? Correct. Officer Abrahamson also graduated from St. Mary's Central High School and then obtained a bachelor's degree at UW-Milwaukee. He then attended the Recruit Academy, ironically with Officer Berna as well, at Fox Valley Technical College. He's also the son of a Menasha police officer and a state trooper. However, one thing that Officer Abrahamson has made it clear from the very beginning, he wants him to be his own person. Despite his parents being in the law enforcement community, he wants to make it all on his own, which I certainly admire that with him. He's completed his field training and is now working solo on patrol. So ceremoniously, I present to him his challenge coin. Congratulations, John. And finally, I wanted to introduce Officer Adam Miller. Officer Miller is not a new officer in a couple different ways, actually. Adam has been working with us now for just over 1.5 years, but he was unable to attend the ceremony last year because he was still living in Clintonville. He's also not a new officer, not just by our department, but by the mere fact that he's also had experience working in, can't never say it, Sturtevant, thank you, that's why I don't work there. Marion, and most recently, he was a K-9 officer in Clintonville. He also served on the countywide tactical team, or SWAT team, with Waupaca County. So with the number of new hires that we've had over the past couple of years, it's really been beneficial to have someone that's come to us with a number of years of experience. He's the new guy, but not so much the new guy for us. He holds an associate's degree at Fox Valley Technical College, and he's a native of the Appleton area, and he was glad to get back into this area. So he received his American flag pin about 2 months ago, and he's off probation, so if you see him around, we're glad to have him around. Thanks. And finally, the one award that I did want to present tonight was to Investigator Mark Mawthy. Mark Mawthy is truly an asset to this community. He strives to provide the best police services possible. He's always the first person that's going to jump in. Oh, you went on this side? You're sitting over there. Yeah, I blocked you out. He's always the first person to jump in. Although he's in investigations, if he hears something going down on the road, all of a sudden you hear Mark calling out on the radio. He's always there to help another person. When working on an investigation, he's very compassionate and understanding to his victims, and he's diligent in holding those who commit crimes responsible for their actions. Investigator Mawthy is always thinking outside of the box and ways to get the job done. He's always taking on additional tasks and trying to figure out new ways to fix things. He serves his community in a variety of different volunteer roles. Most notably is his work with Special Olympics. He's done that for approximately 25 years now. He's participated in the Fox Valley Regional Torch events, including Polar Plunge, Texas Roadhouse, Red Robin, Cops Gone Wild, Bowling for Champions, Lock Up a Cop, and the Final Leg. He's also attended 5 of the International Torch Run conferences, much out of his own dime. Proud to introduce the 2015 Officer of the Year, Mark Mawthy. As the mayor indicated, it's been a challenging and interesting few weeks, but I'm very proud of the folks that work for your police department. I think that's kind of the spirit of Menasha as a community, and the cooperativeness that we have not only with other police agencies, but within our department and within the various departments within the city. Look forward to seeing how the vote will turn out tonight, because I think just in the same way we all came together for that incident, there's certainly some interesting opportunities that could be going forward for the city. So thanks again for the time, and have a good meeting.
The next item on the agenda is a resolution saluting the Menasha High School varsity football team. We just wanted to take this opportunity this evening to recognize all the good work that our team has done both on and off the field over the past year before they graduated and went on to the next phase of their lives. And at this point, if we could have a motion from Alderman Langdon.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to make a motion for the resolution of R-17-15, resolution saluting the Menasha High School varsity football team.
There's a motion and a second. We're actually going to read the resolution tonight just because it has a lot of good information that I think a lot of you don't know about the team. So Mark and I are going to kind of trade off as we go through here, and we actually printed it nice and big so we could actually read it. It's in about 8-point font. So we'll start out with, whereas Menasha has had a football team since 1896.
And whereas Jeremy Korth became a coach of Menasha Blue Jay football in 2001 and head coach in 2008, embarking on a journey of building the team at all levels from elementary school to the varsity team.
And whereas Menasha Blue Jay football developed the Benevolent Blue Jay program, focusing on student athletes' involvement with the community on a volunteer basis. Through this program, athletes have been involved in Community Fest, the Canadian National 30 for 30 tree planting, and elementary school visits.
And whereas Menasha Blue Jay football initiated a Big Brother program where seniors and freshmen mentor each other, allowing leadership to go both ways.
And whereas the team went from a 0-9 record in 2001 and 2002 to an 8-3 record in 2005, clinching the Fox Valley Association Conference, and a 9-2 record in 2010, marking a 3-way tie championship with powerhouses Kimberly, Appleton North, and Menasha in the Fox Valley Association Conference.
And whereas Menasha Blue Jay football has been in the WIAA playoffs every year since 2009,
And whereas Menasha Blue Jay football was the undefeated conference championship in 2014, their first year in the Bay Conference.
and whereas Menasha Blue Jay football achieved their first ever state championship in 2014, playing against Waukesha West, ended the season with a perfect 14-0 record.
And whereas the 2014 Menasha Blue Jays received the Time Warner Play of the Year award and were named one of the top 50 high school football teams in the nation by Max Preps.
And whereas the 2014 team has 5 members playing in the WFCA All-Star Game, 7 team members received state honors, 1 member was named 2014 state co-MVP, 2 members were named to the WSN All-Star Team, and 1 member received the Scholar Athlete Award from the National Football Foundation.
And whereas graduates of the Menasha football program have played college football at numerous schools, including University of Minnesota, University of Minnesota Duluth, Mankato, University of Wisconsin, UW Milwaukee, UW Eau Claire, UW Oshkosh, UW Stout, UW Stevens Point, UW Whitewater, UW La Crosse, Wisconsin Lutheran, St. Norbert, North Dakota State, and Lakeland College.
And whereas the community has rallied around the team and school, instilling pride in the program, high school, and the city of Menasha.
Now therefore be it resolved that the city of Menasha recognizes the achievements both on and off the field of the Menasha Blue Jay football team and its coaches by designating Championship Lane the honorary name of the portion of Appleton Street between 9th Street and 11th Street, and by designating Korthway as the honorary name of 12th Street between Racine Street and De Pere Street. And at this point, if we could have a roll call vote, please.
Motion carried on roll call 8-0.
At this point, we'd like to invite the team and the coaches, or anyone else who's here involved with the team, to please step forward. And we'd like to present you with a street sign that you can use in the So we could have given you a piece of paper, and we thought that would be kind of inappropriate. So we thought for something that hasn't happened since 1896, it was really appropriate to give you something a little bit more memorable. And this will be a constant reminder of for the community of things that you guys have done in your senior year, I believe, or maybe not. But we'd like to present one sign to the coach.
And this is the sign, coach, that honors. And I'd like to present this sign in honor of Coach Korth, and it says honoring Korthway.
And then to the team as a whole, we wanted to name something after the champions. So we have a Championship Way sign for you as well. We hope that you'll display these either in the weight room or the locker room. And very soon we'll have the signs up on the street as well. You guys want to say anything? Jeremy, you want to say something?
Well, I just want to say thank you, and thank you to everybody involved. This is quite an honor, obviously. Maybe this one is probably more important than anything, and anybody that's been around the program would realize that it's been really good for not just the program but the city. It's been a great year, and this kind of just caps it off. A lot of these guys are going to be graduating soon, and we'd have more kids here tonight, but they're playing their baseball game at Timber Rattler Stadium, so the whole school's out there right now. But I want to thank these two for showing up tonight as well, and thank you all for a wonderful year. Thank you.
have one more item up on the reports this evening. The American Cancer Society is holding their Relay for Life at Calder Stadium again this year. This is the second year that they've done this. And we have Jeff Montour and his family here to accept a joint resolution from both the city of Neenah and the city of Menasha proclaiming Relay for Life Day, this 19th day of June 2015, which will be at the stadium. I'll read this quickly, and then if they would like to make some comments as well. It says, whereas the American Cancer Society invests more in cancer research than any other nonprofit, non-governmental organization, and whereas Relay for Life began in 1985 in Tacoma, Washington, and it has become a worldwide movement to end cancer. 1 out of every 100 Americans participates in Relay for Life. And whereas the American Cancer Society funds and conducts groundbreaking research that helps us understand cancer's causes, determines how best to prevent it, and discover new ways to cure it. And whereas together with millions of supporters, the American Cancer Society saves lives and creates more birthdays by helping you stay well, helping you get well, and by helping find cures and fighting back. Whereas Relay for Life will be held on June 19th, 2015 at Calder Stadium in Menasha. Now therefore be proclaimed by the mayors of the cities of Neenah and Menasha that Friday, June 19th is Relay for Life Day in our cities and encourages all residents of our communities to actively participate in this event and help make a difference in the battle against cancer. So Dean and I will be there that night. I don't know if we'll have teams or not, but we're working on that. And I'd like to invite you, if you'd like to step up and say a few words about the event and encourage others in the community to join us that evening. I'll bring this over to you.
Thank you. I just want to thank Mayor Merkels and everyone here at the City Council for allowing us to come here and receive this honor. We put a lot of hard work all year round to make the Relay for Life a successful event. Without the community of Menasha, we could not do it. The community comes out strong and we put on a great event, so we hope to see everyone there. What I want to also thank everyone for is all of their efforts the day of and the money that gets raised the day of. Without you guys, there would be not the funds to help support the research and programs that the American Cancer Society provides to patients. So I am very thankful. So from my Relay for Life committee here in Menasha and also from the American Cancer Society, we thank you for this.
Thank you. The next item is the minutes to receive and the communications to receive. Do we have a motion this evening? Mark, did you want to make the motion? Or just, no? Alderman Benner?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to receive and put on file minutes A through G and communications H through N.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on any of the items? Alderman Taylor? Oops. No one? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The motion carries. Item G is the consent agenda. There are 7 items on the consent agenda this evening. The first item is the Common Council minutes to approve from May 4th. The Board of Public Works recommendations from May 4th for the street use application from the Memorial Day Parade on Monday, May 25th. The street use application for the Diablo Cycling Criterium, Sunday, June 7th, from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. A change order for Commonwealth Construction. It's change order number 2, and it's an add of $92.74. A payment for Yankee General Contractors for the Gilbert Riverfront Trail is a payment of $68,951.00. And a payment for Yankee Contractors, the Gilbert Trestle Improvements. It's a payment number 1 for $98,087.50. And a recommendation to award the library and City Hall re-roofing projects to Borshi Roofing Professionals for $106,659.78. Are there any items that anyone would like separated this evening? Alderman Taylor?
I'd like to separate the Common Council minutes, May 4th, 2015 for corrections.
Are there any other items that anyone would like separated? Seeing none, could we have a roll call vote on the remaining 6 items? Oh. Okay, we need a motion, as Debbie has so thoughtfully reminded me of. Is there a motion for the remaining 6 items? Alderman Benner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At this time, I'll make a motion to approve consent agenda items 2 through 7.
There's a motion, a second. Now we can take a roll call vote. I think I'd have learned that after all these years.
Motion carried on roll call 8-0.
Item 1 is the Common Council minutes. Did you have a amendment that you'd like to make?
I'll hold those still and talk with the clerk during the week and bring it back next council meeting.
Is there a second for the hold? There's a motion, a second to hold. We'll bring those back at the next meeting. Item I is action items. The first item is the accounts payable and payroll for May 7th through May 14th. Is there a motion this evening? Alderman Nichols?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll move to approve the accounts payable and payroll for the term of 5/7/15 to 5/14/15 in the amount of $1,930,003.97.
There's a motion, a second. Is there any discussion on any of the items this evening? Seeing none, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Motion carried on roll call 8-0.
Item 2 is the beverage operators license applications for 2013 through 15 and 2015 through 2017. Do we have a motion this evening? Alderman Nichols?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll move to approve the beverage operator's license applications for the 2013 through 2015 and 2015 through 2017 licensing period as listed under approved in the police department memo dated May 13th, 2015.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Motion carried on roll call 8-0.
Ms. Roski, I believe, I'm not sure if I got your name right, is here this evening. If the council would care to hear from her, would you wish to address the council this evening? Do we have unanimous consent to hear from Ms. Roski?
I'll make a unanimous consent to hear from Ms. Rowski.
Is there any objection? Thank you for coming this evening. Did I get your name?
Thanks for having me.
Rousey? That
Yes.
was close.
So, recently I had been hired at a tavern here in Menasha. I live in Clintonville, and I got this letter saying that they were going to deny me based on my past record. And I just wanted to let everybody know that I think that you should reconsider. I've never had any citations or anything as far as being a responsible server. And a lot of the things in my past, I was in a really bad relationship. So once I got out of that, there's no trouble. I'm a college student. I have a year and a half and I'll have my bachelor's license. I pretty much just work and study. So it's, since I've left him, there's nothing on my record after that. So I'm just hoping that you guys can reconsider because I really would like to keep this job.
Are there any questions from the council at this point?
Sure.
Alderman Langdon?
Thank you, Mayor. How long you been out? Questions for you?
Sorry.
Okay. So all these incidents, you were in a bad relationship?
Well, a lot of it was from fighting and abuse, and the thing with him was I had lived in Tomahawk for a while. I went up there. That was his family. I didn't know anybody at all, and a lot of times he would be abusive with me, and a lot of this stuff it was him doing, but he always had like his mother or friends say that it was me. So I was in trouble for it all the time. Unfortunately, I couldn't afford an expensive attorney, so, but I've complied to everything. I've, been punished already. I don't feel that I should be punished again for it.
So your last incident was in 2012?
Yep, and I know that there's a misprint on this paper I have. It says on May 2013, I was convicted. That would have been May 2012.
Okay, and
On the
nothing
bottom.
since then?
I have not been in any trouble. I left him, I moved back home, and now I live in Clintonville. I'm in school. I have a year and a half left. I'll have my bachelor's degree, but no, absolutely nothing.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Does anyone else have any questions? Does anyone wish to make a motion? Alderman Langdon?
I'll make a motion that we reverse and approve the liquor license.
Is there a second? The motion dies for lack of a second. We do need to take either approval or denial according to the city attorney. I'm not staring at you because of that. I just happened to see your light turned on right as I was going to say that. Alderman Nichols.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll move to deny the application for Ashley Rousey.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Motion carried on roll call, 7-1.
Officer Halverson probably can help you if you have any questions about what this means and when you can next apply again. I know normally the chief would go out and do that, so I'm just gonna throw you under the bus instead. Okay, item number 3 is the development agreement by and between the City of Menasha, Wisconsin and Menasha Downtown Development, LLC. The attorney has a short presentation that she'd like to show before we go forward.
Is a slide. What I've done is on PowerPoint just put some of the highlights of the development agreement onto it. You do have the actual terms of the development agreement before you. What I wanted to do tonight is just go through the terms of the development agreement. Most of these terms you are familiar with because we received a proposed development agreement, and the terms we did already discuss at the last meeting. There were some modifications that were presented, and those have been put into words in this agreement, and we'll go through and describe what those changes are. And you'll see those on the PowerPoint, I put them in red. So if it's in red, it means that it's something that has changed from what we have already discussed. And actually, this is the wrong one. This is the other one. So we're going to end that one. This is the one we went through the last time we were here. Oop. Now I'm going to need a hand in finding it, Debbie. So I'm gonna- And it's dated today. Here. Ah, there we go. That's right. Okay, from beginning. There we go. It looked the same, and all of a sudden I thought, wait a minute, I think we... Okay, there we go, that looks better. As a preliminary matter, I just wanted to briefly talk to you about the redevelopment agreement between the City of Menasha and developer, and that's with McClone Downtown Development LLC. That also is on the agenda. And I want to discuss it as a preliminary matter, just putting it out there, because you'll recall that we did talk about this, and under the terms of this agreement, the city is committed to 120 stalls in the Broad Street parking lot for 99 years at $1 a space per year, limited to the hours of 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. And you did receive a proposed amendment to this development agreement. And so as a preliminary matter, assuming that you move forward on the development agreement, this development agreement that we're talking about today, you would also need to make an amendment to that redevelopment agreement between the City of Menasha and McClone Downtown Development. As far as the agreement terms are concerned, there were some changes that were made in it. The dates, you will notice, the construction completion date is the same. That's not going to change, June 1st, 2016. You might have seen in the agreement that you received some other dates, 15 days after the signing of it. The city is supposed to do stuff. I forgot what some of them are, but they're unrealistic dates. Those dates, we do know they need to be adjusted to coincide with subsequent governmental approval dates. It's just we needed to get this out, and that it was late on Friday, and so we wanted to make sure we had this development agreement in your hands. So those dates will need to be adjusted, just so everyone is aware of that. And the developer obviously is aware of that. So with regard to developer obligations, we already, this is in black, so these are things that you're already aware. They were in the previous development, proposed development agreement. Construction beginning June 1, 2015, being completed within 1 year. Must be constructed in accordance with the project plan, and that is approved by the City of Menasha. Utilities, now Exhibit G is something that's you had not seen before, but we did discuss the utility relocations that the developer versus the city would be paying. That has not changed. And again, if the CDI grant funds, if the city receives those and they're distributed, there is a provision in that agreement whereby the developer must comply with those grant terms. This is a new provision. Developer will not contest the building value, 12 million or less, and then there's a escalator clause increased by 1.5% per year during the life of the tax incremental financing district that's proposed to be approved. Continuing on with the developer obligations, public use of the parking garage. I believe we talked before about the entire parking garage. There was an issue with regard to indemnifying and holding harmless the developer during those times when the public was going to have use of the parking structure. And so that, in the eyes of the lawyer, me, was not a good thing. The city really should not be holding the developer harmless or indemnifying the developer. And so we had discussions back and forth, and what is in the development agreement is that the city's city's insurance would be primary as it relates to public use of that parking structure, and that would be at the lower level. That is what would be available for the public parking during outside of the tenant's normal business hours. That would be something that we would have anyways. We would be insured for public use of public parking, just in general. So I believe that covers the city adequately. The provision that's directly underneath that, maintenance of the parking garage in accordance with industry standards, that's a new provision. If you'll recall, initially, or the last time that we spoke, the development agreement terms indicated that the parking garage was going to be transferred to the city after 7 years. And then the developer was going to be responsible for the maintenance during the first 7 years, and then after that, the city would have had it. We put some provision in there to take into consideration that there should be regular maintenance that's done on this parking garage, because at the end of the TID term, when the structure is turned over to the city of Menasha, we want to ensure that it has been kept up, and so in the agreement, it's indicating that the developer shall maintain it in accordance with industry standards. There's a sale and transfer of the parking structure to the city for $1 at the end of the TID. That language at the end of the TID, again, that's something different, because what was initially discussed was that the structure was going to come to the city at $4.8 million after year 7. This one you're familiar with, public parking at Marina Place. Marina Place parking lot is proposed to be transferred to the developer for the surface parking needs, with 6 stalls on the west end being available for public parking. And then we had also talked and put into the agreement that there would be a retention of access to those Main Street buildings for deliveries, etc., in the back area. And we also put in language that, because right now, if there's utilities back there, we obviously don't need an easement because the city owns that lot, but if there are easements that are necessary, then we would be, the developer would be required to include that language and provide those easements at no cost to the city. With regard to the city obligations, the transfer of Marina Place land to the developer for $1, that hasn't changed. The ground lease in the Broad Street parking lot for the parking garage, and that has changed because previously it was, the 7 years, and now it's till the end of the TID. The payment of developer incentives, these are the same that we had discussed before, $1.75 million and $4.8 million plus interest associated with the Broad Street parking structure. The new developer incentive identified there is parking garage maintenance of $383,000. That number was on the city side. As I had already mentioned, the city had incorporated into the TID approximately $383,000 for the parking garage maintenance, and that would have been from year 8 to the end of the TID. Since the developer would be the owner of the parking structure throughout the course of the years of the TID, then that number went to the developer's side. Oh, and this top one I should have had in red here. Payment of increment, 95%, 5% split to the year 2041. And then that means that 95% of the tax increment would be going to the developer, 5% to the city until the year 2041. There would then be 2 years left on the tax incremental financing district, 2042 and 2043, and then the split would change such that 5% would be going to the developer if the developer is not fully paid, and 95% would be coming to the city. So you see it's backloaded. So the city, throughout the course of the tax incremental financing district, would be receiving 5% of the increment. And then at the end, the last few years, it would be 95%. Public improvements, utilities necessary to the development. Again, you look at Exhibit G in that regard, and that has not changed from what we have previously discussed. The acquisition of the parking garage for $1 at the TID expiration, and that was on the developer obligation side as well. We just talked about that. There is a provision in there whereby the developer retains rights to use 300 stalls beyond the expiration of the tax incremental district expiration, and that's for an additional 20 years. I believe in the original agreement it said, a total of 50 years. So this is approximately 50 years would be the total amount of years that the rights to use those stalls attached to the office tower building. But then for those additional 20 years, it's at a fee, and that's to be determined under the terms of the agreement. It says something to the effect of the developer and then the common council at that time would, talk about and reach an agreement with respect to what the fee would be, and it should be consistent with what the fees are for parking in the Fox Valley area. In the PowerPoint that I did at the last meeting, this has not changed. The 1.7 million breakdown, tax incremental financing district number 5 project plan amendment, which would transfer $750,000, CDI grant funds of $500,000, and then an additional $500,000 that would come, the city would front that money and then be paid back through tax incremental financing number 13. And I told you it would be a 5% over the course of till 2041, and then the last couple of years, the 95% of the increment. The 7.94 million, where does that come from? I'm just pointing out where that's coming from and how that was calculated, where that number came from, and how it's expected to be paid. $4.8 million number, you've seen that before. That was the purchase price for the cost that was involved in constructing the parking structure. We talked about 4.8 million plus interest, and that is 3% for 10 years, 5% for the remaining years, and then added into that is the $383,000 for the ramp maintenance, and that's on Exhibit D, which is in your packet. Utility relocation, that's Exhibit G, and there are no changes to that. And then I just listed that relocation of the McClone Downtown Development 120 parking stalls as part of the city project investment, because that certainly will be a cost that the city will be incurring.
The amendment to the development agreement with McClone Downtown Development indicates that those stalls would be provided for either in the Chute Street lot, the current Germania Hall parking lot south of the building, or the Broad Street lot. And there's also language that would allow the stalls to be in other locations that would be mutually agreeable between McClone Downtown Development and the city. We do not. I have had conversations with the people from Germania, and that would be a dollar amount that would be negotiated and brought back to the council. They have indicated that they would be willing to transfer that property to the city. It's just a matter of what the terms of that agreement would be.
There is a contingency date you saw in the proposed agreement. All approvals necessary for that TID transfer and the creation of the TID number 13 must be obtained before August 1, 2015, or either party may terminate the agreement. That was not in the other agreement that you saw. But there is also language that puts that contingency in place so that if neither of those occur, if neither of those approvals occur, even aside from the date, August 1st, 2015, then the city is not obligated to move forward on its part under the agreement. The city does have to use its best efforts, however, and good faith efforts to, if it decides to move forward on the development agreement, to accomplish everything that is in that agreement. There are two items in the agreement, if you want to look at it. 1.9, value of building. There does need to be a change. I did talk to the developer just prior to this meeting. The developer, and if you kind of follow along, the developer and city expect the initial assessed value of the building. What it currently says is including land and buildings. What it needs to say is not including land. And then the and buildings would be struck, and it's in that paragraph twice. So that how it would read and what it would mean is that the developer and the city expect that the initial assessed value of just the office tower we're talking will not be less than $12 million. And during the statutory life of the district, the developer agrees that it will not contest any assessment of that building if it's at $12 million or less. And then 2.1, the heading reads, payment of site acquisition development costs. That should be struck, and it would say developer incentive. This is just a term of art. This is not a something that we are worried about changing. I did talk to the developer about this one as well, just prior to this meeting. And then the first sentence, the city shall pay to developer it should say development incentive in the amount of $1,750,000. So that's a summary of the terms of the agreement. If anyone has any questions.
Alderman Keehan.
Thank you. Could you talk about 2.304? You covered it briefly, but could you explain to us what that accomplishes with the 95-5 split in the final 2 years? How that benefits us?
The tax increment that's generated from that project throughout the course of the tax incremental financing district. What this particular paragraph does is it indicates that the developer will be receiving for the first years from its inception through 2041, 95% of that increment. The city would be receiving 5% of that increment, and then it flips so that the developer in the last couple of years would only be receiving 5%, and then the city would be receiving the other 95%, and that's in order for all of us to capture all of the costs and expenses that were incurred as a result of the development.
Okay, so this is us getting our money back just further down the road.
The city would be getting money at 5% over the, for the first number of years through 2041, that's correct.
And
then at the end would be expected the two larger payments,
okay,
the last 2 years.
So, because this is then another concession, yes?
And John is shaking his head yes back
Yes.
there.
Yeah.
What this does is it allows the city to recapture some of those funds, about half of that, during those first years, and then the second half in the final 2 years is what it does. Did I get the numbers pretty close? Okay.
All right, thank you.
Are there other questions? Dan, apparently Dan's light doesn't work. Oh, there we go. Okay. Alderman Zelinski.
Attorney Captain, on item 2.1, the payment of site acquisition and development costs. Why are we changing the wording on that?
Yeah, you can.
What's the reason for that?
It's something both the Administrative Services Director and myself are much more comfortable with.
Well, we had a lot of discussion on this, and you can call it whatever we want. It's out of the bag what that money's for. And that's the part that troubles me the most.
It has to do with what are eligible expenses under TIF law. Certain things are eligible expenses before TIF creation, and that's typically soft costs. The site assembly costs, really, that would be something that we would not be looking to put in as a soft cost for the TIF. So if we're going to provide that incentive, we need to call it a development incentive rather than what would be a hard cost for the site assembly.
Yes, like I said again, that's the part that troubles me the most, that site acquisition and development. Now we're just changing the wording, but it still exists. Same, we know what the money's going for. And I'm having a problem. I can live with the acquisition of the building and the demolition, but I have a problem with paying for the land, because if this was done on a green site at some point, they would have to buy this property irregardless. I don't want to pay for land that we're paying to clear. If that would have been brought forward to the council right off the get-go, I don't think it would have passed.
I believe that the information was provided by the developer, what at 1.75 million, what that was related to.
Yeah, not at the beginning it wasn't.
It was requested at the, I think
Yes, at the last meeting.
at the original administration committee meeting, and then I think it was brought forward to the next council meeting.
Okay. Was there any negotiations, since most of us aren't privy to the negotiations that were going on, was there any negotiations on these costs?
That was something I believe that the Common Council or Administration Committee did discuss with the developer the last time that the developer was here, and the developer did respond. It was, I mean, that was something that the Administration Committee asked
Was there any private?
us to relay to the developer.
Negotiations behind the scenes, because none of us were, I wish I could have been there.
The Administration Committee had requested that be discussed with the developer. It
Yes.
was discussed with the developer, and at the last meeting, the developer was here, and you did ask him as well, and he did respond and indicate that he was not willing to move off that number. And nothing has changed since then.
So there was no request from personnel or department heads to change this number. We were settled at that point. I guess that's a yes. I'll have some more questions in a minute. I would like to relinquish this to the other aldermen because I'm sure they have questions.
Alderman Benner?
Thank you. Do we know the status of the $500,000 grant yet?
I was informed today that the decision of the grant will be made this week. We were hoping that the decision would be made before today's meeting, but apparently the committee that evaluates these proposals won't be meeting until later this week.
And if that grant is not approved for us, do we know what our contingency plan is?
No, and there is no contingency in this, under the terms of this proposed agreement. There is no contingency. So, in other words, if the CDI grant is not approved, there still is an obligation, the city to move forward with the project
So
and come up with the 500,000.
have we discussed from the city's perspective, where those dollars may come from?
We have not sort of evaluated alternative sources of funds, and at this point, I don't believe it would be prudent to do that because this is a competitive grant program, and we don't know where that other funds would come from if the $500,000 weren't awarded. One thing that you might consider, if you're inclined to approve the development agreement, is to authorize the mayor to sign the agreement upon notice of award of the CDI grant.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Nichols?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Director Kyle, have you received any indication as to the possibility of the award of the CDI grant?
Well, our development representative is, she can't speak for a committee that is yet to meet. I think by virtue of the fact we're still here and talking about it, I think we're very much on the right track. Mr. Hogarty and I had a conversation with her a week or so ago, and nothing in that conversation really threw up any real flags of caution. So we are optimistic that the review committee will give this favorable review, and hopefully we'll be working on the project next week if you're inclined to move forward with the development agreement.
Thank you.
Alderman Langdon.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I'd like to say that on this agreement with the parking ramp, before this new one came out, I was totally against it. But with the developers taking control of the ramp, that's just huge, absolutely huge for this city. That made me change my mind quite a bit on how I'm looking at this. The project is good. We need to do it, but we need to, like Ms. Taylor said, that we need to be careful. What I'm afraid of with that grant, I had a conversation with Director Steiner today. If we do not get that grant, Greg, we cannot do this project, correct? Where's the money going to come from then? At that, I know you're optimistic, but we don't have it in our hands right now. That's what scares me. We do not have that. So if we don't get that money, Director Steno, should this city still go forward with this project if we do not get that grant?
I think there would have to be just some discussion on where that funding would come from, because as of right now, we do not have it factored into the plan, and I don't know of any funds available to be used for that.
Okay. Also with the city's general fund, how does that work? Seeing that was not in the budget, can we still take money out of that?
Basically, you're not spending money by authorizing this advance. It would be basically a reservation of a fund balance, so it wouldn't be authorizing the spending, although there is risk with all economic development projects, so you would have to know that at some point if something went very wrong with the project, the general fund would be required to support that on more than a cash flow basis.
And the general fund will get paid back?
Correct. The general fund right now, that's the 95.5. That's the reason we were pushing so hard for that, is because we didn't feel comfortable with those monies coming back at the end of the life. We wanted to see some of them coming in over the life.
Okay. You know, I've been around, you know, I grew up in Neenah and I saw what happened over there. One thing I will say about these developers is that they wouldn't do a project that's not going to succeed. If they didn't think it would succeed, that they wouldn't be doing this and helping us sell it. That's a for sure thing. I'm honored to see Mr. Bergstrom in the audience. He's here for the support of this project. If he didn't think it wouldn't work, he wouldn't be here. I do have, my worry though is that $500,000 grant. And I would like to see a contingency upon, until we get that $500,000 grant in our hands, then the mayor can sign the agreement, but not until then. Greg?
Yeah, just one comment. The way the grant works, it's really, they don't give you the money up front. It's more of a reimbursement type thing that's predicated on the construction of the project, invoices and so forth. That's provided afterward. So what we would be looking for on the front end is what I believe they would call a notice of award. So their committee would review this project. They would say that we have designated this project for funding, and then subsequent to that, they would be providing a contract to the city to sign. So we would, I think, once we get that notice of award, we would be pretty much free to move forward.
So, okay, and I get that. But I still feel more comfortable because right now we don't have the money. And I just can't see how I can vote yes for, we don't have the money. So I would like to have the contingency on before that we get that notice of award in the mail, in their,
They would send notice.
they would send
whatever
notice.
form.
And then once we get that notice, I'd feel a lot better. Then I would say that the mayor can go ahead and sign the agreement.
We can definitely put that.
That's what I would like to see.
We can put that in the motion if that's where
Okay.
you feel
Yeah.
would make
Let's-
this project be workable for you, yes.
Okay,
Others?
thank you.
Are you up again, Dan?
Thank you. Greg, the parking ramp, or maybe Peggy, it's gonna be taxable, correct?
It will be property on leased land, so yes, it would be taxable for private use.
Okay, where do the tax revenues go to?
I believe there's a clause in the agreement that says any tax increment earned from the ramp that's not attributed to the building would go directly back to the developer.
And what are these dollars being used for? Initially, this was set up for 7 years, now it's for 28. Why can't the monies come back to the city after 7? That's what it was initially set up as. Or what are these dollars used for, maintenance, or?
The taxes that are being collected, it's coming out of this pocket of the developer to pay the taxes, and it's going back in the other pocket of the developer to refund the taxes. So there's no some gain
So
associated with the taxes.
There's no gain to the city of this taxable property, other than to have a parking ramp.
And the 300 jobs in the downtown that goes with it, yes.
Okay, we're talking about the agreement, not all the other things, because that can be, we could debate that all night long. And what would that value be, and what is that revenue amount?
Peggy on
Since
that.
it's personal property, is that the same tax rate as anybody would pay on their house?
First question was, how much is that? The answer is, I don't know. A parking ramp that costs $4.8 million isn't valued at 4.8. That is not common. It's usually a percentage, and the percentage I've gotten from the assessor is anywhere from 15 to 30% of the construction value would likely be what the assessed value would be. That would be depending on how the developer chooses to handle the common space, etc. Not something we could predict at this time. The second question was the tax rate the same as the other tax rate? Yes.
Okay, personal property is the same as...
Correct.
I'm a little nervous about the McClellan 120 parking spots. If we have to buy Germania, that's really going to change this TIF immensely. Because that would probably have to come into the TIF cost. And I don't know what they were asking for this property initially. Do you know by any chance?
I do not.
That's an unknown cost to the city at some point. And that could make this TIF or make it or break it. Because it could become distressed right off the get-go if we have to go purchase another building to go forward with this. Okay, the maintenance on the parking ramp, they will take care of for the first 28 years. Greg, do you know what happens to the maintenance on a parking ramp in the second 28 years? And where does this cost go? And how do we afford that? Those are the expensive years.
Well, and per the agreement, after the initial life of the TID, we are able to, according to the agreement, charge reasonable fees for parking, so that would be a source of funds to help with those maintenance costs. We've done some research into these parking structures, and they don't really have expiration date on them. What the literature suggests is that there's a, strong relationship to the maintenance, the, preventative maintenance that occurs, sealing of joints and that kind of thing, that is to occur over the life of the structure. There's also, sort of climatic considerations where, that can have an impact on the life, but a lot of it has to do with the maintenance of the structure. And we have addressed that question to the developer to try to get an understanding about what, the maintenance regimen that is planned over the course of their ownership of it, and they have agreed to provide us with information as far as how it's being maintained, and that was going to occur on a regular basis, so that if there are concerns that we have, we can make the developer aware of it and hopefully deal with that in a timely manner.
Yeah, that was my concern is the second half of life of this thing is when the real costs start to come in, and we don't have any idea what that could possibly be. We're looking for parking rate at the second half of this parking ramp. I'd hate to see what that rate could be. And that could be quite substantial, and they might just say no, and then we're sitting with a ramp. They might go seek their own parking somewhere else.
Yeah, it's hard to forecast what might happen 30 years from now, but that is a consideration that was talked about in the agreement, and I think we've come to consensus as to how that is to operate.
Because there's no way of us putting money aside at this point for future maintenance of this ramp, is there?
Well, there is possibly a way to write a maintenance expense into the TIF project plan. The issue being that, we've got this thing pretty well bound up with the obligations that already exist. So in the scenario where the value of the development would exceed what was sort of projected, and that we get to a point in time before the closure of the TIF where all of the development expenses expected to be paid out as performance incentives to the developer have been paid, and on the other hand, all of the expenses contemplated as city expenses under the development agreement have been paid. Well, then anything above and beyond that was identified as a maintenance cost could be made an eligible TIF expenditure. So basically, the short story on it, if the TIF performs better and we write it into the project plan, we might be able to utilize some of that resource at the end of the district if it is available.
After all that, how do we unbind this thing and put something like that in the agreement?
I don't think it would need to be in the agreement. It would just be in the TIF plan, because it has nothing really to do with the developer. It has to do with the ramp in the city.
That's nice, but is there any wording in there for that?
No.
So if there's no wording in there and we're agreeing to an agreement, it really doesn't mean anything.
You're agreeing to a piece of this overall package, and that's the development agreement. Later on, you'll be reviewing the TIF project plan and what other things we might like to include in
Okay. This next question is for Attorney Captain. Everything on this agreement refers to the developer. What if the developer ceases to exist, this property sold? What happens to this agreement?
There is no assignment. So
Explain.
there's not an ability to assign the rights under the development agreement to any successor. So if the developer ceases to exist, then developer wouldn't be paid, first of all,
But
I
the
guess.
development agreement
So I don't know
ceases
that would be very,
Does the development agreement cease to exist then? If the developer for some reason sells the property, that's been known to happen in developments.
But if they sold the building, that wouldn't make any difference. Our agreement is really looking at the ramp.
And it'll run with the land.
Yes. So unless they sold the ramp to someone else, I don't know why, as the attorney's saying, why would they give up their ability to collect these funds to help pay for the ramp?
Because, heaven forbid, the building becomes unrentable.
Well, that would be their risk, not our risk.
Yeah, but then they sell the building.
Okay.
Then it becomes our risk, doesn't it?
No.
Not, sure?
The agreement has a set amount that they would pay, that we would pay them. And if
Yes.
there's not enough increment there by 2043, they're out, not us.
Have we ever had this language in any other TIFs before this?
This is similar to what we have at the ponds, where there's a set amount, but it has to be paid out by a set date as well. Is that true? Would you characterize it the same way?
I believe that the ponds, there was a maximum dollar amount, and then it was paid via percentage to the developer in the city up to a certain point, and if it wasn't paid out, that's correct. This one is to the life of the TIF, which would be 2043. So I don't know exactly that it's said to the end of the TIF.
Sure.
I believe it was prior to with Marlowe, but I'm going by memory here. It was prior to the end of the TIF, Greg is telling me.
So by having them own the ramp, most of the risk is placed on the developer, not the city. In the past, we've given them the money up front, and then if for some reason the development didn't work, the city was on the line to pay those costs. In this case, if for some reason the development doesn't work, they're on the line to pay those costs.
Well, the one that brings this question to my attention is the Bonta building. I don't know which TIF that was in. Bonta owned it. They sold out to R.R. Donnelly. This building sat vacant for a while. It was repurchased for less than what the TIF was anticipating, and it distressed that TIF. And that's what I'm afraid that could happen, and I hope it doesn't happen with this. And is there any safeguards that cannot happen?
That's what I was just, can you explain it better, Peggy?
Well, there is some risk because the city basically is fronting the $500,000 advance in the public improvements. But other than that, if the development doesn't succeed, they don't pay the taxes in and we don't give them back to them. So they don't get anything for the city. So the risk then would be at the end of the TIF, the city would still have to take the parking ramp.
Yes, but I'm in investment properties too, and if you can't rent them, they're worthless. And that's my only, I want some kind of safeguard here, but I guess I can't get that safeguard.
What is it that you're looking for a safeguard on?
If this thing would change hands.
But what part of risk? Are you talking about the $500,000 advance?
The $500,000, the payment to cover this TIF expenses, because there's a lot of expenses here.
So
1.75 million. I hear initial cost that this could cost the city up to $10 million at the end of it. What number? That's floating out there between $6.5 million to $10 million. What is the total cost of this TIF to the city?
Well, if you would look at the attachment, what's it called, D, Exhibit D. So this document lays out all of the costs, all of the sources, as well as the uses. So the first two columns that say sources, those are where the money will be coming from. The only thing that's not listed there is the $500,000 advance from the city because that's just an advance. It's not something for the TIF to use and to keep. The next four columns are the uses. Those are all the things that would be paid out through the TIF. And then the last three columns before the final year column would show you how the cash flow would work. The one that says annual, that's showing the city getting paid back. I'm sorry, that's showing the amount of the increment left after the developer's paid. The city repayment of advance and infrastructure is the next column that shows the city getting paid back. The next one that says cumulative, that shows the cash flow of the TIF. But if something would happen, let's just say in 2027, and the developer would sell, what the city would be out would be not the building, not the ramp, but $879 less the $150,000 approximately of payments that would have come in. So the city, the risk that at that point would be about $730,000.
But that would only be if the building valued zero at that point.
Right.
It's very unlikely it would hit zero. It might see a drop in value. So
When I was told at previous meetings, they really don't increase in value, according to Peggy. They never had very many office buildings that really increased in value. Is that true?
That would be true. But I think the point, that the question that you were asking, or I heard you ask, was what about the ramp and the building? Those aren't the city's responsibility. The risks are basically the developer's going to put 17 million into this, and the city's going to put, in addition to the development incentive, the 879 for the infrastructure and the advance. Those would be the risks as we go along.
From the previous meeting that we had, when they decided to keep ownership of the ramp for the first 28, they were going to keep it for 7, now it's 28 years. What did that change with these numbers?
It didn't necessarily change the numbers as much as it did the risk. The city at no point in time during the life of this TIF has to take out a loan. That means we don't have to worry about making loan payments to the state trust fund or the public bond market, whoever the loan is with. That responsibility is all now on the developer. So at that point, the developer was paid all of their money in years 1 to 7, and the city was on the hook basically for the rest of the TIF should anything go wrong. That is no longer the case. The developer's on the hook from day 1 to year 20.
And then the 500,000, I don't remember that being in there, taking it from the general fund.
That was part of the plan the entire time. But the difference is, in this one, it's more favorable for the city because in the first plan, the city was getting paid back in the last years of the TIF if there was increment available. That's now been changed so that 5% of it comes back every single year, and then 2 years have been reserved where 2042 and 43, where the city gets the majority of the increment. So the chances of the city getting its money back have just risen a lot. Those are the big changes.
We're transferring some parking land or some parking behind the old Menasha Hotel to the developer for $1. Is there any clause that we can put in there if this building 50, 100 years from now doesn't exist, that we can get that property back for the same $1?
That, I guess, would be a question for the developer. It is not written in the agreement.
I'll submit to the developer if that's possible. That'd be unanimous consent.
John, sure.
This is hard to sit here and
But please use the microphone though, John.
Take
Otherwise,
the
no one else
microphone and
can.
respond anytime you want. The public wants to hear.
So I've been trying to be a good soldier here. This is fine. Question is, would we convey the property back for $1 if the building doesn't
Exist anymore.
Is
100
torn
years from
down?
now, 50 years, I don't know. I can't tell the future.
Yeah, I think the Director Kyle could describe this maybe more clearly, but some of the parking behind those buildings is our parking, belongs to the buildings and the land that we own. There are some of that parking is city property that is for, I don't know how long, but has been assigned to the buildings that are there. So the majority of the property that is being conveyed to us has historically been assigned as parking stalls to the buildings that were there. And I believe that, I can't speak for the city, but I think a piece of this was, in that instance, the city's responsible for plowing it, for keeping it, maintaining it, and by squaring this property off, conveying that amount back to us, we're now responsible for it.
Yes, I agree. But if some reason the building's not there anymore, the city's got a lot of money invested. I don't know what the city initially has invested in this parking lot. And I'm sure it's a tidy sum to create this parking lot. Now we're selling it for $1. I'm just asking, if this building ceases to exist, does the city get that piece of property back?
No.
Okay, that's an easy answer. I just thought that'd be unique if this, we'd get it back, because I don't know what the city has invested in this piece of property. We cleared properties, I'm sure, there, and bought property there, and Craig, you know, have any idea what we have invested in this parking lot?
I have an idea, but I don't want to hazard a guess because I just don't have enough recollection. We had, there were buildings that were assembled as well as the improvements that were made there, but I would just be guessing at that.
Okay, thank you. And then on the guarantee of the value of the building, we asked for some information from the assessor. We're not privy to leases and stuff on here that guarantee the value of this property. Was anything like this reviewed with the assessors on the leases and stuff? Because that bases the value of this building. An unleasable building is worthless.
We did have the assessor look at the best information available from the developer, and he, while he cannot make an actual assessment until the building is built, he is confident that the $12 million that's listed in the development agreement would be an initial value, realistic initial value.
Okay, thank you. Still like some. Thank you. That's it for now.
Is there anyone? Alderman Nichols?
I'm prepared to, I have one question first. We talked about the contingency on the notice of award. Sure. And would that hold up anything, have a negative, any sort of negative impact on things at this point?
Well, if the answer comes back this week, I think that would be okay, but if it drags out, that's going to really put some sand in the gears of moving this project forward. That would...
Can I address that? Sand in the gears is one way to put it. I think it would doom the project if that would be a contingency that couldn't be met for some period of time. And I would be willing to say, because we've heard from the WEDC that we are going to get some sort of notice. I don't know if it's the final award, Greg, but if we have a notice that we're going to receive in the next week, I'm comfortable waiting for that if we can proceed with our construction, our getting ready and all that, those kind of efforts. But I would say if you put a contingency in there that says you would not sign this agreement until that award is granted formally, I think that's like voting no on this agreement tonight.
I'm wondering exactly what that means formally. What are you saying, John?
My understanding, there's a notice of award process, and perhaps Director Kyle has more information, but if that's a process that we were told we would hear probably late last week or early this week, the outcome of the committee's deliberation. And I don't know if that's in a formal letter of award or a call to us saying they've met, they've made a decision. The process to get that turned into a letter takes 4 weeks, and
okay,
that we can't wait on. we just can't wait on that.
So how would we characterize that then, Director Kyle?
Well, as I understand it, we would be notified from WEDC that their committee has met and this project has been selected. And I believe that's what would come forward as the notice of award. And then subsequent to that, they would send us a grant agreement, which will likely follow that by several weeks. Then we would need to review that agreement, and so that's where the kind of the timeline is. But I think what we're wanting to hear from them is that, hey, you know, we've picked this project, we think it's a good thing for Menasha.
So notification basically is what we're looking for.
I would be comfortable. I certainly understand the concern of the alderman. I'd be comfortable with that if it's based on the notification.
Sure. I think that's what we were all saying, but I just wanted to clarify that as well.
So pending notification or?
Okay. Sure.
Pending notification. Okay. Then at this time, I'm prepared to make a motion. I move that we approve the development agreement by and between the City of Menasha, Wisconsin and Menasha Downtown Development, LLC, upon notification of award of the CDI grant.
There's a motion and a second. Did you have other comments?
Sure. Attorney Hogarty, as long as you're at the microphone, one of the questions I get from a lot of people is about the 300 jobs that will be coming to this building and whether or not they are new jobs that will be coming to the community or folks that will be moving to the new building from the Discovery Point building. Could you provide some clarification for the public on that?
Sure. I can give you the best answer I have tonight, based on my discussions with Faith, is that they have some significant business that they're working on that will result in a lot of new jobs added here in the Fox Valley. I believe there was an article in the paper a week ago where they talked about needing to hire 300 to 400 people for ongoing business. It's my understanding that they will be bringing new people to downtown Menasha. I don't know if they'll all be from outside of Wisconsin. You know, they might be people that work in other places in the valley, but they're not planning to relocate people from the building across the way into this building. These would be accretive new people.
Great, thank you for clarifying that. After seeing the first proposal that was presented to the Administration Committee a few weeks ago and seeing the agreement that is before us this evening, I think we've really come a long way in this process. And when the developers agreed to take that parking ramp and finance it themselves, that took a huge burden off of the city and the taxpayers, and it changed the what this TIF looks like. There are also some improvements that the city is committed to making in this project, which include the walkway, the pedestrian path between the proposed parking ramp and the new building, some sidewalk and curb and gutter repair, utility placements, and all of these things need to be done in our downtown. And as Alderman Taylor has stated in the past, public improvements, TIFs offer a great opportunity to help fund public improvements that need to be made in the community. And so these improvements are now able to be included in this TIF, whereas before they were not. So I think that's important to this TIF as well. And when the developers took on the parking ramp, we both, the city and the developer, have skin in the game for the life of this TIF, and I think that that's something that's really important to the taxpayers in Menasha. This building falls in pretty much the center of the first district, and I've gotten a lot of feedback from a lot of people, and it's been half and half. Some really feel they want the project to move forward and cost isn't an issue, and others have the exact opposite opinion. So I think we've found a middle ground here that is suitable and provides a comfort level for the city to move forward, and I'm excited for the opportunity that this is for the city.
Alderman Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I'd like to thank staff and, excuse me, staff and all the aldermen tonight and the developer for all their questions. That's how we make the right decisions up here, with questions. I'm pleased that Menasha will have a signature building in the 21st century in our downtown. We're already 15 years into the century and we don't have a new construction, so this is certainly a signature piece, and I certainly appreciate that. Lots of questions though. Director Kyle, this letter you sent to us about the development agreement with Menasha Downtown Development LLC. On the second paragraph, the last sentence, you say the parking structure is planned to be turned over to the city at no cost in the year 2043. I've seen a couple other places, and I know it's only $1 that it's spent in other places, but sometimes a dollar in the legal world makes a lot of difference. Is that correct, that statement?
Yes, Pam would be putting the $1 in there. I would say it's for free.
So it would be $1?
Yes.
Okay. Does that change anything from your statement to the dollars?
No, because it's in the agreement. I was sort of summarizing the main points there, yes.
Okay. Also, Mayor, I have this proposed rezoning map, and I was wondering, it's kind of hard to tell because it only has one address on there. Is this the upper parking ramp next to your building in the amended plan unit development?
I would believe that's true, correct?
Well,
it's upper and lower lot.
that's correct, because it's all one parcel. It's one parcel, and we would be zoning that whole parcel to PUD.
So I thought we weren't going to make the upper parking ramp part of this, the lower Marina Place parking lot.
It's not.
It's not.
The developer, their acquisition is solely related to the lower parking level. It just happens to be that upper and the lower piece are in the same real estate parcel.
Okay.
Yes. Oh, and yes, and there will be, as you may have noted, there's a legal description of the property that's proposed to be transferred to the developer, and there will be a certified survey map that's created, which will have the effect then of splitting the parking structure component of the overall parcel from the remainder. So that will be separated going forward.
So you see the top ramp remaining public?
Absolutely, yes.
Thank you. Do we have Mayor, what is the total accumulated cost for this project? We've seen different numbers in the paper, and what is, with the interest, with the incentives, with the parking lots, what is that total cost?
The total costs for the TIF are within that payment schedule. I don't think I've added them all up. I can't give you a
it's
specific
reported in the
number.
press, for 6 million something, then 10 million, and I'm just, people ask questions like that. I'm just trying to get a dollar amount that with everything put in here, including the McClone parking, what is that total?
We do not have a number for the McClone parking at this point.
You know,
The numbers that the attorney had on her PowerPoint are the numbers that are the closest numbers that we have at this point.
so what do you think that the total is?
There's a development incentive of 1.75 million, and then there's a parking incentive of 4.8 million plus interest.
So if somebody was to read the newspaper tomorrow, what is the top dollar?
I didn't add those numbers up. You can add them up if you'd like to, but I didn't add them up.
Okay. A month ago, in closed session, I referred to that projector stand as the elephant in the room. And a month ago, I said the elephant in the room is those 120 stalls for McClone. And what are we going to do? So it's been a month already, and we still don't have that. Is it $10,000 a stall? Is it giving away another parking lot? What is Germania Hall, if we got to go buy from them? What is the price of these stalls?
We don't have a firm number on that. As Greg had noted before, we have spoke with different people about providing those parking stalls, but we don't have a final estimate on the cost of that yet.
Ballpark figure.
I don't know if we can give a ballpark figure because right now the prices include buildings as well, and we're not necessarily looking at buying buildings. So.
And along with that question, Germania Hall isn't even in the TIF boundary here. So how would we leverage that, and what is your plans to leverage that property if it's not in TIF 13?
And we can make expenditures outside the TIF if it's within the TIF plan, or it could be within another TIF in the downtown that we would make those expenditures from. We have to bring that back to the council when we get final numbers and final proposals for
So
that.
projection, $10,000 a stall, times 120, $15,000 a stall?
I don't know that we have a number, that's the issue. I don't want to give you a number that...
I think it's not proper to talk about price because whatever number we come up with is either going to be the ceiling or the floor for our negotiating, and I don't know that that's a good place to start from.
And I don't think it's proper that we don't even have a number that we can take back to our citizens with this agreement. You know, I mean, people ask questions to us, you know, where are you going to put these guys? How about what Miss Dable Taylor said about the intersection at First and Broad? You have 300 cars. It's a blind corner as we know it now. Are we going to be able to expand out that TIF? The TIF does not cover that intersection.
The TIF can be drawn any place that we want when we start working on the TIF plan, yes.
So-
I'm not sure exactly why you included half the intersection rather than the whole intersection. Greg, did you have a rationale behind that?
So Exhibit C is not written in stone?
No.
Okay. And when is that going to come, the TIF boundaries to the
With the
council?
TIF plan. I'm not sure when you expect to have that to the council. Fairly soon.
Well, as you know, there's a process associated with this, and it goes through the Plan Commission and so forth. So we're looking to have something to the council by the end of June.
I do have a problem with the TIF boundaries that it doesn't include the 400 block of Broad Street because of a really harsh impact on that neighborhood. The parking ramp will be out into the street. And on this document, I don't see any of the landscaping setbacks or so how are we going to, if that parking ramp's out in the street, how are we going to violate our landscaping? Our transitional landscaping areas?
I'm not sure that the transitional would apply to that. We are redesigning Broad Street though. In what year are we doing that, Mark?
2019 construction.
So we would be looking at,
Well, why isn't that in this? If we're putting the ramp out in Broad Street, it's quite an impact on the homes across the street. I mean, I wouldn't want a parking ramp out into the first lane of traffic across from my house.
it's not within the first lane of traffic. There's still sufficient room there to put a standard street with parallel parking and 2 lanes of traffic on both sides.
It is out in the street.
It's in the current footprint of the parking in the street, yes.
And this we can make changes to, because there is some current, what we have right now, and what we've heard from day one is safety, safety, safety. Okay, not only for the people that are going to work in this building, but also for our public. And I think there's an opportunity, as Mr. Benner said, are we going to have surveillance cameras in that structure and tie it into the police department to minimize our police time? We all know our police time is valuable. So is there going to be cameras in that building?
We'd have to ask the developers about that. They own that building, so I don't know if you have plans to have surveillance within the building.
We've had several meetings with the chief of police to talk about safety within the ramp, and that has been one consideration, but we haven't decided whether we're going to have cameras at this point.
Also, the parking garage, the openings between floors, I don't see any type of screening or fencing in there. I know we're on the low end of the budget for this ramp, but certainly I think for the pedestrian safety and for the people's safety in the ramp, there should be fencing or screening on the side of that. And my document doesn't show that clearly. Do you know if there is or not?
Is this on the ground floor?
Well,
the floor that's
second
level?
Floor comes up too. I mean, you know, criminals are pretty fast people sometimes, and I don't want them trying to exit out the side and get away that much faster. So if that would happen, I'm just thinking out loud. I would rather have them use the entrances or the exits to get in and out of that ramp instead of, and with the sidewalk being so close on the north side, I think there's an opportunity there that the public too could be at risk. Just trying to look at the full picture here.
Sure. We don't have any screening plan for the upper levels, and we've had discussions with the city on the design of the lower level, and it was intentional that it's open so that when the public is using the parking lot on the weekends, say they want to use the businesses, they can park and walk right out. And it was a convenience idea for the people using it at those times.
I would like to see some screening on that north side for the pedestrians that are using that, because the setbacks are very tight. And also, if you're walking down Broad Street on the sidewalk, there is two sightline problems that the sidewalk comes in behind the building here. And I think somebody walking should have a straight sight line walking down that property, not somebody hiding behind the parking ramp here. And, you know, I'm just thinking out loud here and thinking about the safety. And that happens with that blind corner at both ends here for the public. So I don't know if to gain our transition area, eliminating the 4 stalls here and the 5 stalls, angle stalls out there on the street to compensate that straight sight line. So Greg, I don't know if that can be looked at, or if we vote on this tonight, that's it and there's no change?
Alderman Taylor, are you talking about the indented stalls that currently exist? And what we're talking about with the redesign of Broad Street is we would continue the sidewalk straight down on both ends. Those street stalls would be added into the parking lot, and we reconfigure it so that that sidewalk would run straight along the entire length of Broad Street again.
So from Racine Street to Milwaukee Street would be a straight.
Exactly. That's what we've been.
It's not on here like that.
But because we aren't going to be constructing it that way until we get the grant for the reconstruction of Broad Street. So at the point when we reconstruct Broad Street, that's when we would
It's 3 years
reconstruct.
away though, Mayor.
True.
3 years, a lot of things can happen. And I think we should be a little more generous instead of bending that sidewalk like that. I think we need to maybe address that safety issue at this time. I mean, we have safety issues for our citizens and definitely for the people working downtown here. I live right in the neighborhood. I see a lot of people walking, and we're on the Friendship Trail, Broad Street. So I would like that as safe as possible and as soon as possible too with this project. On the west end of Broad Street, we have a construction area that is going to really hinder parking for the public for the Nemechek building, the Weather Vane, and other buildings that right now I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 stalls that they're going to have there. I don't think there's more than 11 people that eat at the Weather Vane, and there's more than 11 people that work in the Nemechek building. I think that construction area should be moved to the northeast corner. You have much more room down there than you do at the west end.
This was a topic of a lot of discussion during our negotiations. I don't know if you wanted to comment on that, John, a little bit about the construction process and why
Yes,
we
there's-
came about what we did.
Yes, wanting to be very conscious of the businesses downtown to try to not disrupt them as much as possible. But the design of the building, the way they're building it from one end to the other, they need to locate on that end of the parking lot. And we went through a number of different designs and to try to provide that parking as soon as we can and as safely as we can, because we don't want people parking in a construction area. And my recollection is what we came to, which I believe is in your packet, is a portion of that lot. It expands after a period of time once we are not bringing in the large pieces of concrete we have to bring in. We're going to move that back to provide more stalls. And the builder has agreed to do everything they can to keep stalls available, to make sure that the construction workers are not.
We lost you. Apparently we ran out of battery power. If you want to, why don't you just join Greg?
So there was an effort to make sure that we're providing as many stalls as we could and make sure the workers are not parking using the stalls that are necessary for the business. We're very conscious of that. We looked at any way we could flip it to try to build it from the other end, but that was not possible. And they've committed to doing it so the disruption is as limited time as possible.
Well, if we're going to have the sidewalk closed on the south side of Broad Street, so we might as well take advantage of those stalls in the street there and make that part of to minimize the effect of the Weather Vane and the Nemechek building. So maybe take out that planting area there and utilize that because it's going to be closed anyways. So that would maximize that. Mayor, who has to do the snow removal question I had from someone?
Pardon?
Who does the snow removal on the parking ramp?
On the parking ramp, the developers, when they own it, they would be providing all the maintenance, snow removal, cleaning, lighting. I don't know if I'm missing anything else, general maintenance of the ramp itself for the first 27 years. And that would also hold true in the back, lower level Marina Place parking lot.
Glad you mentioned lighting. What we have here are the site electrical plan does have a few will, kind of a cobra head lighting for the parking lot there. Currently, we have a double or single head lighting throughout the downtown, and on the Marina Place upper level parking in the Paved Technologies parking lot, we have the same lighting head. I would certainly like to continue that theme throughout the community instead of breaking that up. I think it looks, it's kind of a unified theme, and I know that they're changing these heads that we have now to LED from high pressure sodium. So I would like to see a uniform look down there.
We had a large discussion about this at the Plan Commission meeting, and being that they are not a city lot, we didn't necessarily feel that they had to be the same. And the other half of our conversation was those acorn lights do not meet our current ordinance requirements because they have, call it light spillage, I mean, significant light trespass, especially being that they're about the same height as the second floor windows in all the condos along there. They shine directly into people's homes. So in that case, it's much more kind to your neighbors to not be shining those into their houses.
There is, if you look at the county building across from the YMCA, they have shields that you put in there to prevent that spillage onto those condos there, and you can accommodate that. And also, our police officers have told me that they like that light downtown, that high pressure sodium. They want that lit up. So, and I think you look at downtown Neenah, they have that uniform look, and it all the way down to the Y, and it certainly looks nice. And I hope we could accommodate that. I haven't seen a site on any of these plans for the recycling and refuse on that currently is in the Broad Street parking lot.
And we do not currently have a site for that at this point.
Okay. And that came at a cost about, I chaired that committee for that parking lot. We used to have a lot of homes in that parking lot and a lot of other gas stations and things. And the city really did, with the help of the businesses, really did a great job. And that recycling center cost $37,000, and at the time, taxpayers called it the Taj Mahal. So, where are the businesses and the residents? Where are we going to put this?
Apparently, Director Kyle has some thoughts on it.
Well, first off, we're going to be salvaging as much of the screening. And I've also asked Adam Alex to look at the possibility of salvaging the columns themselves, not the footings, but the columns, to see if we could replace those, or some of them, or relocate them. Our thought is that we would likely need perhaps 2 smaller dumpster enclosures, because we now have a building that's like 280 feet long that's separating one end from the other, and it would be, rather than where it is now somewhat centrally located, we'd be looking for the businesses on either end to transport their recyclables and their refuse quite a distance. So that would be our tentative thought. Where exactly that might go, we're not there yet.
And if that was probably 15 years ago at $37,000, it's probably close to $50,000. Where's that dollar coming from for that?
We are committed to making those relocations, and it is within the current amount that's in the agreement.
Okay, so something we don't have on the books. We don't have McClone's 120 stalls or the recycling center at this time.
We have funds associated with the recycling relocation in this pro forma. We don't have it for the McClone stalls.
I talked with the developer today. We received our packets on 9:00 p.m. from the police department Friday night, and the weekend kind of got away from me, so I had one business day to work on this, and out of 7 calls today, I only connected with 1 call. So the timing on this is, and today I have the flu, I have an under 3 temperature and the chills, and my voice is breaking, and it hasn't been a good day. And you need to get answers for these questions, and one business day isn't, no one should have to be put through that to assimilate all this, and then what your constituents calling. But we'll move forward, and I hope there's another project in our downtown like this, and I hope we can all work, as I talked to the developer, we can all work out front with this and all come together in the needs of it. When you involve a team concept, we're all going to come out with the best possible solution for the city of Menasha. And this is a moment in Menasha's history that I think we can, that I know we can do something great. Are all the numbers here? No. Are everything answered? No. But I certainly hope all that is forthcoming to this body up here, and when we start setting the TIF boundaries, I think that's really important, that we have opportunities here to make other things happen. So I appreciate that, and thank you.
Is there any other discussion? You just had to do one more, Dan, didn't you?
Yes, thank you. I'm way too conservative for this thing and the lack of information I have on some aspects of this. I would like some more concessions from the developer as the payment site acquisition and the parking ramp, so I'm not sold on this yet.
Thanks. Anyone else? If not, oh, Mark?
Yep, thank you, Mayor. I totally get Alderman Zelinski's worry, and that's was definitely my worry, and I had a conversation with the developer and with our finance director Stino, and asked questions, and I'll tell you, boy, that parking ramp is huge, and they are taking all the risk in that. Yeah, we don't have all the information yet. Numbers is a big thing for us 3 aldermen especially, but I'm going with, and I asked Mr. Hogarty right out about making money on this. I says, are you into it for it to make money? And he answered no, they're in it. And I saw a couple names that surprised me in the paper on investors. It's like, that shocked me a little bit. And that made me start thinking, wow, and I know them very well. And it's like, they're NENA people, and it's like, I went to school with them. And if they're willing to try to make Menasha better, then I don't think they're out really to make a lot of money. They still haven't gotten, all the investors still haven't gotten all their money back from the NENA towers. That's what, 20 years, John, or 25 years? So, and they haven't got all of their money back from that. Like I say, when I saw that list, Mr. Hogarty, John has been out there. I know we, 3 of us aldermen, been asking you questions and tough questions, and we should be. And you've answered them faithfully, truthfully. I just believe this is going to work. And I'll say it again, that we have a person, look who's in our audience, Mr. Bergstrom. It's like, holy cow. These people aren't going to do this project if they don't think it would work. I know that. I know that for Mr. Bergstrom. I cut his lawn when I was a kid in NENA, if you remember that, on Cecil Street. I just believe that these people, and especially those 2 names, I won't say them, but those 2 names I saw, it's like, holy cow. They're really here to help our city because they know we need help. And that's what I'm looking at. That's how I'm looking at this project. So thank you, John, for all your time. Boy, you've been doing a lot of running around and answering all of our questions, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Alderman Taylor?
Director Stino, the $50,000 thereabout for the recycling center and the McClone parking, is that a deal breaker?
The recycling's already included in this plan. As far as the additional spots go, I don't know what the value of that cost is. As was said, when it is determined, it can be built into the TIF plan if there is additional increment. I think that's your decision on whether it's a deal breaker on a project this size.
And I would like to see the developers. I have a multimedia show of the 80s with a lot younger people that we all were at that time, doing many groundbreaking ceremonies. And I would certainly hope that we always did it in great fashion. And I hope the public is invited. I hope everybody can take their turn at it. It'd be nice to put somebody's scrapbook and they put their helmet on, and it can be a great community event too. If you take that under advisement. Thank you.
So I guess as we move forward, there's a couple things that we've all been talking about here. Of course, the new jobs and what that's going to do to our downtown, but I think we've missed the $18 million in wages that are be coming into our downtown and the $53 million in economic impact. And also the big thing that the developers came forward and structured this in such a way that there's almost no risk on the city. $17 million risk for the developers and $1 million for us. And that wasn't the way it started, and we've been pushing Mr. Hogarty pretty hard to get it that way. And I think that puts the city in a very good place to have a great building, great people downtown, and really minimize our risk. So I hope you all support the project tonight. Is there anyone else? Otherwise, we can take a, oops, Attorney Captain, you don't get a vote. Don't pull too hard, I broke that yesterday.
I just wanted to mention the dates, just so everyone's aware that we do have to change some of the dates in the agreement. There's an Exhibit B that was attached that we have to include in that agreement.
As well as the 2 points that you made.
And the 2 points that I made
earlier.
Relative to, thank you,
1.9
relative to
and
section
2.1.
1.9 and 2.1, yes, thank you.
Any other discussion?
I do have one more question.
Okay, Mark? Usually Dan gets the
I know
last
it.
word, so.
John, is the parking ramp big enough? Is it going to be big enough? 300 stalls enough?
I think it will be big enough for our purposes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Seeing no more discussion, if we could have a roll call vote, please.
Motion carried on roll call 7-1.
Thank you for coming this evening. Item number 4 is an amendment to the redevelopment agreement between the City of Menasha and developer McClone Downtown Development LLC dated April 7th, 1997. Do we have a motion on this item at this point? Alderman Nichols?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll move to approve the amendment to redevelopment agreement between City of Menasha, Wisconsin and developer McClone Downtown Development LLC dated April 7th, 1997.
So there's a motion and a second. Discussion, Alderman Taylor? Alderman Taylor? Yeah.
Call on me.
I did. The papers are shuffling.
Yeah, lots of papers. In that development agreement, I couldn't find any changes. I saw that it was the 1997 agreement that I voted on back then, but I don't see anything highlighted or in bold. What is this? Yeah, I don't have that. All I have is three pages. Okay. And just update me on the changes.
Your development agreement, all of those. Right here.
Pretty good. Attorney Captain will kind of quickly go through what the amendment is.
Yes, please.
The proposed amendment is just to paragraph 11, which is entitled Parking. And the first part of that sentence beginning 120 spaces of the Broad Street parking lot would be deleted, and in its place would be added 120 spaces in the Chute Street, Germania Hall, and/or Broad Street parking lots, or at any other location as may be mutually agreeable to city and developer. And then the sentence would continue. So it's just amending to add alternative parking options rather than the 120 spaces being solely in the Broad Street parking lot.
I was told that the Germania Hall we shouldn't talk about here. It's in writing, so certainly, we should be able to talk about that, I would think, and try to come up with a number for the cumulative cost on this project. Why don't we have that? We discussed it a month ago in closed session. I mean, a month is a long time.
We've been working to try to get the other development agreement put together. And as you've noticed, it was quite a struggle to even get that put together. So this gives us options of several different areas is what we're looking for here, so that we have potential. If we start discussing, as Director Kyle said, what we're willing to pay for that site in open session, that's not a good idea.
So by voting for this, are we locked into the description on here?
Well, it has three areas or a location as may mutually be agreeable to the city and developer. So if it's not one of the three spaces listed, then, and we come up with another one, then it would be mutually agreeable to the McClones and us.
Thank you.
Did you want to comment, Eric? No, okay. Any other discussion? There was a motion way back when, right?
Yes, there was.
Okay, so there was a motion and a second, and seeing no other discussion, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Motion carried on roll call 8-0.
Item number 5 is a motion to remove from the table ordinance 0815, and this was relating to the rezoning of the site for the office tower. Is there a motion right now to approve? To remove from the table, I'm sorry, Alderman Nichols?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll move to remove from the table O-8-15, an ordinance amending Title 13 by making certain changes to the district in proximity to Main and Mill Street.
Is there a second? There's a motion and a second to remove from the table. Okay, could we have a roll call vote on that, please?
Motion carried on roll call 8-0.
And now the item is back on the table. Would we have a motion to approve the ordinance at this point? And they're both going to point at each other.
Thank you,
Alderman Benner?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to approve ordinance O-8-15, an ordinance amending Title 13 by making certain changes to the district in proximity of Main and Mill Street, originally introduced by Mayor Merkus, recommended by the Planning Commission.
There's a motion and a second. Is there discussion? Seeing none, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Motion carried on roll call 8-0.
Item J is ordinances and resolutions. The first item is ordinance 10-15. Do we have a motion at this point? Alderman Benner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This time I make a motion to approve ordinance -O-10-15, an ordinance amending Title II, Chapter 2 of the Code of Ordinances. And it's introduced by myself.
Is there a second? There's a motion and a second. Is there discussion? Alderman Taylor?
For an ordinance change, does it not take a 2/3 vote?
An ordinance change would just be a majority vote?
This isn't a charter ordinance?
No. The attorney says no, it is not a charter ordinance.
I didn't hear her talk.
Oh,
He's
go
speaking
ahead.
for her.
No,
This is not a charter ordinance?
no.
Okay. I'd like to have Mr. Benner, since he used this so often, I'd like him to explain why he thinks it's not of a good rule to protect the minority of the citizens of Menasha. That's what our government is all about, is protecting the minority. It's not always the majority. Then you could go to the Marxist regimes in the 1930s and 40s and just, run people down. There's checks and balances.
Alderman Benner?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have used this on several occasions, and as long as the spirit and the intent of this is being followed, I don't have a problem with it, because we have dialogue, we have discussion, and when we come to a point is where it's just fair to seek out more information, get more information, and bring it back in 2 weeks after everybody's had dialogue and discussion on it, I don't have a problem with it. The other thing is that Robert's Rules of Order does make provisions. It does respect the majority. And one thing that had happened last year, which I was pretty disappointed about, and then again this year, we ended up holding an item that just without any discussion at all and could have seriously impacted the city. I struggled with it, and I thought we should just follow Robert's Rules of Order. And I have a document from Mayor Brandt from when I first got on the council, and Michael Taylor got on the council, and he made a request for Mayor Brandt to explain the motion to hold.
Attorney Brandt.
Attorney Brandt, I'm sorry.
I say, I don't remember a Mayor Brandt, but maybe.
Sorry. Might have been implied sometimes. Anyway, item 4 on this is, it says that limitations on the motion to hold, and there's 5 items on here that are limitations on the motion to hold. Number 4 says it cannot be used if the effect would be to cause the issue to be defeated. And last year in August, we had a situation where we were voting for a new logo for the city, and a motion to hold was made so that, because Alderman Zelinski was not in attendance, so that he could come back and have a vote. And Alderman Taylor and Alderman Sevenich mentioned how important it was that everybody be here to vote on this. And I agreed. I didn't have a problem with it. At the next meeting we come back, Alderman Engelbert was not here. And I asked for a motion to postpone, and I couldn't get a majority. And we voted on this, the city's logo, and it was defeated because I couldn't get a majority to have a full council. And the same folks that thought it was so important for Alderman Zelinski to be here to make his vote would not concur with my thoughts that we should have a full council. And Alderman Engelbert, his district, as so important as it's been pointed out, that everybody be represented, was not allowed to be here to represent his position on that logo. So here the same folks that are saying that we're taking away from the minority are the same ones that use this to their benefit to get what they wanted. And so after that, and then I saw what happened at a couple meetings ago, where without any dialogue, we put a motion to hold on our attorney's appointment. I thought, you know what, we just need to go back, get rid of the ordinance, go back to what Robert's Rules of Order is, and follow it. And stick with that so everybody has dialogue, everybody has representation, and the majority can speak. And it's been clearly pointed out to me by the same folks that are opposing this, that the majority, that the minority isn't that important. So that's why, out of my frustration between that event, which I thought was not good politics, and then with what we did with the attorney's appointment, I thought, you know what, that's just enough. We're gonna use this as a tool to, in my opinion, to obstruct or to change votes. And I think we should just go back to the core where Robert's Rules of Order is and call it good. And just follow Robert's rules, instead of having our own set of rules that amends Robert's Rules of Orders that seem to work for every other public meeting in the state of Wisconsin that I'm aware of. And that's why I did this.
Well, your description of the events is about half truth. I asked Alderman Nichols that if she withdrew her motion, I would withdraw the hold. She had that opportunity to do that at that time when Mr. Engelberg was gone, but she chose not to. So the conservative spenders of this council, with spending $250,000 on
Alderman
local
Taylor,
change,
this is
is
related.
completely. I'm talking about the whole. You didn't stop Alderman Benner when he was talking about the local change.
But you're talking about the price of it and
That's
not
right.
the process.
Right. Now, there you go with the wordsmithing again, Mayor. And you didn't stop Alderman Benner. And this is where this body up here, and this is where these chairs don't like to hear it.
Stick to the topic at
I
hand.
am. And I'm talking about the conservative spenders up here and the liberal spenders up here. Spend. And we put that option out to Alderman Nichols to withdraw that, and they would have had that opportunity, but she chose not to. So we had to move ahead at the next meeting. So there's two sides to the story. Another thing with the attorney's position last month, it was under the new council, and it was appoint the attorney, and it shouldn't be on that. It should be a couple weeks out from there. And the only way to talk about it or describe it, as you said, Mayor, was either appoint it or you don't. And you said we couldn't talk about her benefits, her wages, even though half her job was slashed. On all the documents, it states city attorney, personnel director. And there was changes. The public, there's people in the public here that asked me.
And again, we're off
what's
topic
going on
here,
with that?
Alderman Taylor.
Right. And I'm talking about that specifically on what happened, that the council had no choice at that time to hold it so we could discuss it at the next time. And we still can't get it on the agenda because the personnel won't put it on. Mr. Keenan won't put it on the agenda.
It will be on the next agenda, and that's not on topic at this point, Alderman Taylor.
Okay, but there's two sides to the story, and I'm just telling both sides of the story here. There was nothing inappropriate done here at all. They had the option to come back and remove that from the table. So they could have had the option. If they would have removed that from the table, they would have had the option that they could have held it. You know, it's parliamentary procedures, and if you can maneuver around whatever to stop big spending, so be it. But that was $250,000 for a local change. Thank you.
Alderman Zielinski.
Thank you. Pam, in the rule book there, what other alternatives do we have that we don't have to have a majority vote? If we want to delay something, we still have to vote on it, correct?
Majority vote, that's correct.
So basically the minority would be pushed aside at that point if they wanted to bring something forward and the minority wanted more time. It would be very hard to hold it. That's my aspect on this whole thing. Is that true?
You would be required to have a majority vote to postpone or to table, yes. I don't think anyone on this council would object to any alderman asking to table something or postpone something if they also asked for more information. I think what people have been displeased with is when it's being used for political purposes to try to stack the deck when they know someone else is going to be absent in a future meeting, and or when they use it just to delay something with no reason or no request for additional information. But that's my opinion. If it was used correctly.
You don't have to worry about me using it, stacking the deck is 1 against the 7, so don't worry about stacking it.
I don't think you've used it that way though, Alderman Zelinski.
No, I haven't, and I would still like the option 2 at some point when something's being rammed down my throat that I don't like. And speaking with you many a times, there's things that you have questions about, as when you were alderman, you held them. And now all of a sudden it's not good enough for the minority here. That's what's really troubling to me. I'm not going to use it to hold up something that's really crucial to the city. And I don't see anything that was really held up that was really crucial. You can throw these things out there, but I don't believe it. Because there's 2 sides to the story, and I don't want to debate this all night. Thank you.
Alderman Taylor?
I saw 2 times up here, the boat association at Smith Park and the powers to be at that time cut a deal that they were going to put a parking lot in Smith Park. I chose to hold it that night to avoid a parking lot that would have been put in Smith Park. The Smith family wrote about the covenants, the neighborhoods came out, and we stopped it. And that's the power of that hold. Alderman Weber tried to tear down our fire station one night by the library. And it wasn't successful because Alderman Seven and I put a stop to it.
And these were all in instances when the committee meeting and the council meeting followed each other, so things could happen in one meeting. At this point, the council meeting is 1 week, the committee meeting's a different week, so there is an opportunity for the public to have input on these things as well.
But we all know, and we saw with your behavior here tonight, is that you want to silence people, so you might as well hand out the duct tape, because that's what you're trying to do. And the minority has the right to stop something if they see that. And that's how this country was founded on. This is how our founding fathers found this country, to have the checks and balances. And shame on anybody for taking that away. It's just not the point of holding. It's the point of watering down government for the majority.
There further discussion? If not, could we have a roll call vote, please? I think that we already had a vote before. I believe we already called the vote, and 90% of the people already did vote at this point. After, no, there was already another, does the hold?
The chair is the one who has to recognize somebody.
But the hold does not override.
It does not.
Override another motion.
It's too late.
Okay. I'm going to sustain that motion that it was too late. So, did you care to vote, Alderman? Did he vote or not? Did you care to vote or no? We already had a vote called, and I'm going to sustain that motion, that it was too late at this point.
That's the way you want to run your government, Mayor. Go ahead. Water it down.
Motion carried on roll call 5-3.
Item N is public comments on any matter that was on the agenda this evening. Is there anyone who wishes to speak this evening?
Well, as Chris said, what's the point? But I do think what just happened here is sad for the community. Don, you should know better. I mean, you want nothing to hold back your agenda. That's basically, you don't want the public to weigh in. I didn't know about this development agreement until it was posted on the website Saturday night. You have council members that didn't get it till Friday. The people in the know probably knew about it. There are so many times where the council members get their packet on Thursday, a weekend comes along, and they have to vote on things Monday. It doesn't give them any opportunity. The public usually doesn't get to see what's happening until Thursday night when it's on TV. Then we can start calling our aldermen and asking questions. Well, that's Thursday night, so we call them Friday morning, and if the stuff comes up, there's no time. There are not enough time to really make adequate, informed decisions up here, and now you just took that away from them. And it's political. Nothing less, it's political. I'm very disappointed, Don, very.
Thank you, Sandy. Is there anyone else? If there's no one else, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn. Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.